Diane, thank you for that generous introduction. So I remember my first ever photography class, and the two main lessons that our instructor imparted upon us were: one, no one ever wants to see a picture of themselves from underneath their chin. And number two, there are three main elements to photography: subject matter, lighting, and composition. Now, as you may have gathered, I am a photographer of the great outdoors, a place in which you have fairly limited control over the lighting, normally provided by the sun. However, the sun does move in a somewhat predictable manner. So, based on these principles from my teacher, most of getting great outdoors photography is being in the right place, at the right time, with the right people. And Oregon is, in fact, one of the best places to do that. First stop on Sándor's Magic Hour tour of Oregon is the Columbia River Gorge. I try to imagine what it was like for explorers Lewis and Clark, who set out from St. Louis in 1804, at a time when President Jefferson, one of the most learned men there was, believed that the Plains tribes of North America were either a wandering band of Welshmen or one of the lost tribes of Israel, and he speculated that Lewis and Clark might run into woolly mammoths. So they believed that they would ascend to the headwaters of the Missouri River, do some quick horse trading for horses with the Shoshone tribe there, cross over the Rockies, put their canoes into the headwaters of the Columbia River, and float for an easy ride down to the Pacific. It did not quite work out that way for them. This is one of the murals at the Oregon State Capitol with a somewhat idealistic view of what it would have been like. And I still, when I'm shooting out in the gorge, I try to imagine what it would have been like for them to behold the glory of the Columbia Gorge, just as the first native peoples to arrive beheld the glory of the Columbia Gorge. Here is a photo from a trip that I led for the Mazamas BSEP program. That stands for the Basic Climbing Education Program, for those of you who are new to Mazamas, or for those of you who are watching on YouTube. It's a mountaineering class where we teach people the safest way to do dangerous things. And a lot of that is conditioning. So I led this conditioning hike on a pretty gray, cloudy, normal Oregon day, frankly, with the sky of lead, and I had to use a fill flash to fill in those raccoon eyes that people normally get from the natural lighting in the Pacific Northwest. But just a few minutes later, the sky opened up for a little bit of magic hour action. So in photography or filmmaking, we refer to the last light of the day, just the few minutes before sunset or the few minutes after sunrise, as magic hour or golden hour. The word hour here is used somewhat loosely. In my experience, it's normally about 15 minutes. And from this, it is the time of day when everything and everyone looks their best. My companions, whose faces were kind of washed out in that last picture, are all of a sudden looking radiant. This shot, I'm dragging them away from the Angel's Rest viewpoint, of course, because we should get back to the cars. We are at least somewhat responsible adults with day jobs, and it would be ideal to get back in the light instead of trudging down the trail with headlamps. So I have to drag them away and have to use all of my social skills to convince them that it's time to go and get out of my shot now without saying, listen people, you're being selfish. I got a room of 100 people here and I need to show them this. Which brought me back to my photography instructor and being in the right time at the right place. Now, this was a long time ago when I took this class. Some of you may have read about in history class when people took pictures with film. I still believe those principles from my photography class then still apply, even though we use digital cameras now. I shoot with a fairly basic digital SLR, but to test my theory that it's all about being at the right time, at the right place, and if humans involved with the right people, I have a little quiz to keep everyone on their toes. There are 2 photos from this show that were taken with a cell phone camera. My challenge to you is to identify those 2 photos. We'll do this at the end, so don't interrupt in the middle. But the winner who can identify those 2 photos gets this stack of Sándor Lau signature greeting cards. Challenge is laid. So for the publicity photo for this show, I did want to do hold the photo of the Columbia Gorge in the Columbia Gorge. This was the first shot, and then this is it applied with a little bit of Photoshop. Most of the photos in the show are lightly or not at all Photoshopped. I will point out when we have done it. I did find a photo that I like better for the publicity shot. Next stop on the Magic Hour Tour, Mount Hood, our home mountain here at Mazamas, the roof of Oregon, the tallest point in the great state of Oregon, the founding place of the Mazamas in July of 1894, when more than 100 climbers ascended to the summit to hold the very first meeting of Mazamas. If you look close, you'll see the women are going up all the way in dresses. If you wanted crampons back in the day, here's how you made crampons. You took off your boot, you got some nails, pounded it through the sole, put your socks back on, and hope it didn't rub too badly. That's the founding party right there. Wikipedia purports Mount Hood to be the second most climbed mountain in the world after Mount Fuji, which is more like an amusement park to get up to the top. To be honest, I don't know how they determine these statistics. There wasn't an attendance record register when they were at the top, as far as I can tell, but I do take it on faith. We're going to start the tour of our home mountain, Mount Hood, from the top, and we'll work our way down. I like to call this view the mountaineer's delight, that beautiful pyramid shadow. The only get at Magic Hour. This is right near the top. We're looking down on Crater Rock there, and you can see at the bottom center of the frame, those are some climbers coming up. Part of why this view is so delicious is because the only way to get there is to earn it. Moving down the mountain just a little bit, this is from the next to the Devil's Kitchen, which is an active fumarole on Mount Hood. It's a great place not to fall into. So I've heard, I haven't experienced it myself. My goal is never to. That's the first light on the summit. Moving down the mountain a little bit further into the town of Government Camp. This is a view you can enjoy without doing too much to earn it. This is the view of Mount Hood actually from the back or north porch of Mazama Lodge, and you can enjoy this view looking out the window with a cup of something warm to drink in your hand and some slippers on your feet. Off the porch, there is a telescope in the lodge also where you can see, I've got a pointer on here. Right, I think the top of the hog's back is right here. You can watch the climbers ascending in the first light. Going a little bit off script here. Here is not Mount Hood. This is the view of Mount Jefferson off of the south porch of Mazama Lodge. Mount Jefferson looking glorious and so named by Lewis and Clark in honor of President Jefferson, who sent them on their mission to explore the Louisiana Purchase and beyond. My favorite place to shoot Mount Hood from is Trillium Lake, very near Government Camp. Most of the west side of Mount Hood, of course, you have Mount Hood National Forest. Last time I checked, it's covered with a lot of trees. So Trillium Lake gives a great place to view the mountain through a break in those trees. And here is the Magic Hour photographer's dilemma. Do you shoot just before sunset when the sun is still above the horizon and it lights up the mountain all pink with rosy fingers, but it's not so strong on the clouds? Or do you wait till after sunset, the sun is below the horizon and not shining on the mountain, but is lighting up the sky so pretty and reflecting down onto the lake? I tried to answer this question in 4 trips to Trillium Lake to shoot this past summer. My car is an SUV known as Shadowfax, and it's a great photography vehicle because you can just lay your sleeping bag out flat in the back, get those late afternoon or twilight shots, sleep in the car, and be up at dawn to see what is waiting for you in the light of early morning. Here's another trip I took where I met these ski instructors who were having a night off of teaching kids on the mountain. There are very clear signs on the shores of Trillium Lake saying, "No fires except in designated fire pits." The fire pits also ruin the view of the fire. So, the ski instructors had already made this fire. I could not stop the environmental damage they had already done by making it. And the only way I could share this experience of the fire with you was taking this shot, so hopefully we can all enjoy it for a minimal amount of damage to the earth. My fourth trip was my favorite one out there. I feel like I kind of hit the sweet spot at magic hour. We got light on the mountain, we got light on the clouds reflecting down onto a pretty calm surface of the lake. And after a night in the car, I woke up to some good fortune and this. Did I mention about being in the right place at the right time? Usually with the right people, though it can also happen with the right animals. I'm shooting here, the camera's all ready, and these 3 ducks fly right across. I gotta have things a certain way, of course. My ideal way would be to have 1 duck lined up perfectly above each of these rocks. So as soon as they finish their tour, I'm like, all right, guys, that was nice, but we gotta have 1 more go at it. I don't know what happened. They had something more important to do. Selfish, that's all I have to say about that. I'm still feeling okay, though, because this is magic hour on the east side of Mount Hood. It's a little bit drier there. You will have more cloud-free days. This was a dawn patrol photography mission just last month. If you know Cloud Cap Inn or Tilly Jane's Shelter, it's very near there. That Cooper Spur route that the first Mazamas founding party ascended the mountain on was not the south or easy route that I showed you in the other pictures where many people have fallen to their deaths. It was up Cooper Spur, and I think this is the route up there where they ascended in 1894. 2008, the Gnarl Fire burned a lot of the forest on the east side of Hood, giving us the opportunity to very literally see the forest for the trees and this beautiful kind of haunted landscape to see the mountain through. I was even more delighted than by just the view and the light on this side when one of my companions on this trip, actually of his own will, also decided to come out and enjoy the morning magic hour. And it turned out was someone amenable to having a few photography adventures with me. Evan, I hope you're tearing it up on Tinder with this picture. They call it jumping for joy for a reason. I love jumping pictures. I think part of the best thing about jumping pictures is it's posing for a photo is just not a natural thing for most people to do. A lot of photographers will say, look natural. My experience is that doesn't work very well. You're concentrated inwardly instead of outwardly. The best way that I've found to take off that nervous edge is to get people to do something different and something fairly difficult so that they're not focusing on posing. Jumping takes enough energy that their focus is on this physical activity and allows something about their spirit to come out that's usually restrained when they're focused on looking good for the camera. Furthermore, I have clear photographic evidence here that a lot of people have been misusing the expression "where the sun don't shine" for quite some time. I am also jumping for joy here because not only did I find a companion who wants to do dawn patrol photography at a cold day at 6:30 in the morning, he's also coachable, and I actually get to do my happy dance here because I get to be in one of the pictures. Next stop on the tour of Oregon, Smith Rock. Smith Rock I think of as this little piece of John Ford's Monument Valley that got lost somewhere in the central Oregon desert and just decided to stay. It's a great destination for hiking, rock climbing, and of course for magic hour photography. Here is Smith Rock on I think my first dawn patrol photography mission out there in the light just pre-dawn. I did not have the clouds that I wanted that day. Was frankly very disappointed, but there was more to come. I led a dawn patrol hike actually for the adventurous young Mazamas. We got out of our tents 5:30 in the morning, something like that, to get ready, drive to the rock for a dawn hike up Misery Ridge, obviously named to trick unsuspecting innocent hikers into what they thought would be just an easy stroll. As you can see, everyone had a great hair day that day. I always do. This is my buddy Scott there. Again, I had to use the fill flash, otherwise he would just be a dark shadow there. When I posted this to Facebook, the first comment was, "Oh, that's got to be photoshopped." My buddy Jimmy out there in the first rays of light. So we get to our cars, and 1 minute makes a lot of difference at magic hour. 1 minute and there would be no light on the rock. So I'm scrambling, racing out the car. I'm salivating over this view. Do you guys I get kind of excited about photography. Stop me if I go too far. But I'm like running to get into position because there's a great spot I know, and at the same time I want to stop, frame everything up, get everything exposed right to catch this amazing view. But I did make it in time to get this shot. If you get to the right place, I showed you Mount Jefferson, the view from the north. This is Mount Jefferson, the view from the southwest that's framed so beautifully in this notch in Smith Rock. This is actually the view that I prefer. This big hunk of mountain looks so tiny compared to the rock. This was another dawn patrol. I remember very clearly how my companions were still in their sleeping bag recovering from the previous night. I could not convince anyone else to join me for this dawn patrol tour, but I did get the clouds to line up correctly. This is the pre-dawn light. The sun is below the horizon and shining up so pretty onto the clouds. Just minutes later, here's the sun shining its first rays onto the rocks and almost off the clouds. This shot from the same day in the same shoot I took primarily because if I ever want to make a horror film set at Smith Rock, maybe there's like a climbing killer on the loose, I can use this as the movie poster. This is right down at the bend in the Crooked River with the dawn light reflecting there. To give you a sense of my process, right? I'm getting up early. Deleting photos is very easy. Getting new photos is very hard. This is just like one screenshot of approximately 500 photos that I took this day, trying to get the perfect light, the perfect composition out of all these. This one is my favorite. You get there just at the right time, the right place, the sun is reflecting down, and it lights the Crooked River on fire along with my heart. Next up on the tour, the Three Sisters Wilderness in Central Oregon, where you can see Broken Top and the Three Sisters Mountains. Not an official 7 wonders of Oregon, but certainly one of my wonders of Oregon. This sequence is from my first ever camping trip there. We were on a backpacking trip at Green Lakes Campground, which is nestled in this valley between Broken Top there in the east and South Sister, the 3rd tallest mountain in Oregon, on the west. We had expected bluebird days. It was August in Central Oregon, and we had nothing but downpour the first day. My buddy in the hammock had a particularly difficult time of it. But I knew if we just sat it out, the clouds would clear, we would get this haunting view of Broken Top. Minutes later, this is the dawn with rosy fingers, or the dusk with rosy fingers kissing the top of Broken Top and its way to say goodbye. Another reason I love to visit Central Oregon is my family lives there. My brother, sister-in-law, my 2 little nephews, and mom and dad are there. This is my nephews on Crane Prairie Reservoir that's South Sister in the center there. Oh, I got my pointer. South Sister in the center, and then Broken Top there. You guys got an idea of what I like to shoot now. People, great outdoors, fire, jumping shots, and silhouettes. What I love about silhouettes is if I look at this photo, of course, I see my own nephews. I was there. But that black outline allows you to project anything you want in there. It's the Rorschach test of photography. So I could see my nephews. But with that, a little bit of imagination, maybe you could see your own nephews, your own children, or your own childhood memories of perfect days like this. You could also project random things like magic hour photographers stalking random strangers who happen to be at the right time in the right place. I think that is a father and son paddleboarding in the perfect shadow of South Sister there. Now, I think the last favorite thing, I'm not going to promise that. I got a lot of favorite things. The list is long. To do is light writing. With photography, you lock down the camera on a solid tripod. You leave the film or the chip exposed for a period of several seconds through many minutes, and it catches all the light that passes in front of it. So this is me writing with a headlamp, and you have to do it backwards, of course, because otherwise you would block the light with your body. So you have to remember to write backwards. The idea is also to get the right exposure, which can be very difficult. Even if I did know how to use a light meter properly to take photos like this, at magic hour the light is changing so much that from the 0 seconds when you start it to 1 minute when you close that shutter, the light has changed dramatically. I use more of a process of trial and error. So this one was way overexposed. I was feeling a bit out of sorts for that. So the next one I thought, great, let's do it underexposed. But sometimes you can be in the right time, at the right place, with the right light, and get the perfect exposure. Here is South Sister on a cooperative trip when I did have that perfect magic hour light shining on the clouds behind it. This is from a different campground. This is from Moraine Lake Campground, which is pretty much the best place for base camp if you want to do a multi-day climb of South Sister and return with some strength and energy left instead of doing the slog 12-something miles from the trailhead in just one day. Here is the view of Broken Top from near our campground at Moraine Lakes with the last rays of the setting sun upon it. South Sister there at dawn. Here's me on dawn patrol photo mission. I did not have a friend amenable to magic hour photography with me on this one, so we'll call this shot somewhere between a selfie and a someone elsey. Selfies look so bad because you're shooting with this big wide lens. It's right in front of your face. It distorts all of your features. Virtually everything's in focus, so you have all this clutter in the background of the shot. Most people like to, and I certainly like to shoot portraiture on a long, narrow lens that gives you this compressed effect where the background is pretty limited. You can put it out of focus, so you can tell what's there, but you can put your main subject matter in focus. To do this, it's just me and the tripod. So I go set it up on the tripod. A lot of cameras now have this Wi-Fi function so you can connect it to the phone. So the shutter is actually a button on your phone. If it doesn't go to sleep in 4 seconds or whatever it takes, you got to get in shot, make sure the shot is lined up, make sure everything is focused using the telephone. I think it took me about 10 different takes to get this one. You make do with what you have. This was a trip I led 8 first-time climbers up to the summit of South Sister last summer. One of the great privileges of my time in the mountains. It was magic just to see the achievement, what the achievement did for them internally. Here is 2 of them on the trail early morning, and that is Mount Bachelor behind them, better known as a ski mountain. Here is our celebration. We had a birthday the night before. If you think it is difficult to get light writing correct with just one person and a headlamp, try it with 8 people and sparklers. The first one didn't quite work out that well. Like I said, I do some trial and error. The second one, we just did a bit of freestyle, express your soul with whatever you want. So I'm getting better on the exposure here. The next one, we got a lot closer. And if you see it with a little bit of love, you can see our intent finally coming through with a little love and the assistance of Photoshop. Next stop on the tour, the Painted Hills, one of the official 7 Wonders of Oregon. The Painted Hills are a beautiful place. There's virtually nowhere to stay, camping, motels, anything, anywhere near there. I did a dawn patrol on this, sleeping in the back of Shadowfax on some BLM land nearby. There are fewer than 5 miles of hiking trails in the entire Painted Hills. These clay hills are very sensitive and delicate. Of course, we want to protect them from future generations. This trail up here is my favorite view of the Painted Hills at sunset. So we're kind of from south, that's east, that's west, where the sunset is shining from. The next morning, we got a totally different view with the sun coming up the other way. And I love this view because it really brings out those canyons and those shadows in the Painted Hills. Here is my favorite shot of the whole trip. I need to go back there and spend some more nights in the back of Shadowfax to get some better clouds up there. Unless someone here, and just go ahead and raise your hand if that's you, has some control over the weather, we could schedule something in advance. Next stop on the tour, the Alvord Desert and Steens Mountain in far southeast Oregon, almost all the way to Nevada. This is probably the least known stop on the tour. If you ever wanted to just get on your bicycle and ride and ride and ride to your heart's content, this is the best place I know to do that. The Alvord Desert is 6 miles wide, 10 miles high, virtually no elevation change. It's a dry lake bed, also known as a playa, similar to the Black Rock Desert in Nevada, where they have Burning Man every year. with one important distinction. The Alvord Desert is BLM land. You can camp there for free anytime. You don't have to pay $1,000 to celebrate a festival of a world without money. The climate in southeast Oregon is much more like the Great Basin or continental climate, very dry, without much rain. So I actually was kind of lucky to get a rainy afternoon, and this sunset after the rain had stopped, and Mother Nature decided to give us quite a show. Alvord Desert is also a great place to have a campfire because there's virtually no chance of starting any kind of forest fire out there. Fire can be a little bit difficult to focus on, but I love this photo all the same. I really like shooting fire at that magic hour where the light is low enough that you really get that glow of the fire, but there's enough to still catch that magic hour in the sky. It's a great place to do light riding. Sparklers are not going to start any forest fires out here either. Sometimes you get a word. Sometimes it's more freestyle, and sometimes the best is when you just let your imagination go. You can have an art festival out in the desert for less than $1,000 a head. This is the scene the next morning. Here's our camp and Steens Mountain behind us. The Alvord Desert is named for General Benjamin Alvord, who was the commander of the Department of Oregon in the Civil War. To be honest, I have no idea who Steens Mountain is named for. I do know that it is the 8th tallest mountain in Oregon, around 9,700 feet, and the tallest mountain in the great state of Oregon. You can summit in your car. So here is another magic hour photographer's dilemma. All of my companions are asleep in their tents while I'm out on down patrol, after having some great festivities the night before. Do I let them enjoy their sleep, or do I wake them up to enjoy this? You know what I did. I got people out of bed to do some magic hour portraiture. Everyone actually having a great hair day. Alvord Desert is also a great place to hunt for arrowheads. It wasn't always a desert, of course. The dry lake bed was once a wet lake bed. If you wanted to come hunt, animals are probably going to come down to the water. I am going to take a brief detour here for something that I like hunting. You've seen a few of my jumping pictures. There's this word we use in English. I think obsession has this negative connotation in a lot of circles. I like to think of it as a passion for jumping photos. It is really hard to get this many people airborne all at once, and it is really hard to get people airborne at 5:30 in the morning after a night of making art and merriment. So you can imagine my joy when I got 6 people out here at 5:30 in the morning with this perfect light to get everyone airborne, virtually everyone's feet above the skyline. I don't know, again, right time, right place, right people. I don't know if I will ever achieve this again. It's kind of like that day at Angel's Rest. The story behind this. I may be I like to get up early, but I may have been a little bit groggy from the night before it as well. I may have forgotten the tripod back at camp, and I was certainly not going to go back and get it. So I just have to balance the camera on the backpack to line up the shot. And you really, even if I had the tripod, the camera must be low to the ground, right? The higher you raise it, the harder it is to jump high enough to get over the horizon. It's basically sitting on the desert floor here. And the camera has a timer setting on it. You got a 10-second timer, and after the 10 seconds, you have 3 shots in a row, spaced at 1-second intervals. So to get this shot, I got to set up the camera, hit the shutter, race into position, get everyone ready, and crouch to jump in 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back down 1 second, jump, back down 1 second, jump again. 6 times of that, or a total of 18 jumps and 18 shots. And as you've seen before, literally thousands of jumping pictures I've taken to get this, all worth it. Next stop on Sándor's Magic Hour tour of Oregon, Crater Lake, Oregon's only national park in southwestern Oregon, and I think of Mazamas and Crater Lake as sisters, and here's why. William Gladstone Steele, the founder of Mazamas, is also known as the father of Crater Lake. I don't know if the moms actually knew about each other, but we're not going to go into that today. What I will go into today is that the Steele Cliffs on Mount Hood and the Steele Visitor Center at Crater Lake are both named for William Steele. And before I joined Mazamas, I had assumed that this name, the apocryphal name given to the mountain that once stood in what's now the caldera of Crater Lake before she blew her top, I had always assumed that was called Mount Mazama, and the Mazamas were named for that mountain. Turns out, other way around. The mountain is called Mount Mazama because of the work of Will Steele and the Mazamas that was instrumental in protecting Crater Lake as a national park in 1902. This is Will Steele there on the right, and the rim behind him. Same scene. This is magic hour at dawn on a trip I did last summer. You can see the viewpoint is called Sun Notch, and you can see Wizard Island. It's named Wizard Island for that conical shape like a wizard hat. And you've got those 3 peaks on the rim. So going from your left to right, that is the Watchman there. I think this is called Hillman Peak there. Crater Lake has 2 islands. Wizard Island is certainly much better known, but the other island is the Phantom Ship right here. And in the background, you've got Mount Thielsen, the lightning rod of the Pacific, in the light just before dawn. Here's a little bit closer view of Phantom Ship. I wish I had been there just seconds earlier, because Jack Sparrow was just walking along the deck of the ship, but he disappeared just as I got my camera out. This is from Rim Village. This is a trip, I think, 2 years ago. Nikki, my sister from New Zealand, came out to visit Oregon. Of course, I'm going to take her to our only national park. This is early June, peak tourist season. 6 o'clock in the morning, we are the only ones out there. The Crater Lake Lodge, unlike most of the great lodges of the national parks and Timberline Lodge on Mount Hood, this is not a Roosevelt administration New Deal project. This was actually built in 1915. That is Mount Garfield behind it, enjoying some morning rays of the sun. This is my favorite shot of the lake with my sister Nikki. You've got the Watchman here. I think that's Mount Hillman there, and the far right, just above Wizard Island, is Lau Rock. I was very happy to learn about Lau Rock until someone explained to me it's not actually named for you. It's the Klamath god of the underworld. Nice try. And our last stop on the Magic Hour tour of Oregon, right here, our home at Mazamas, and my home, the great city of Portland, Oregon. Despite being a very large metro city with a lot of cars and buildings, which are not really my favorite thing to shoot, there is a lot of great outdoors in city limits. Forest Park, the largest municipal park in the United States, gets a lot of attention. I like to shoot at Powell Butte in East Portland. It's also near my house. This is the sunset there. I think this was last October. Right time, right place, only 7 minutes from the front door. So I can kind of look out when magic hour is coming and think, do I throw the camera in the car and make a quick trip? You can see all 4 summits of nearby mountains, Mount Jefferson, Mount Hood, Mount St. Helens, and Mount Adams from here, and there are usually birds of prey and deer here at Magic Hour as well. It's a great place to lead urban hikes. This is one I led maybe a year and a half ago. The only one of my hikes I will ever allow anyone to wear blue jeans on. Another great place to do some urban photography in Portland Metro, also in East Portland, is Rocky Butte, where you've got this concrete railing all around, which is a great place to do a picture with a clear background. So if you want to clear cut that out and put something else in the background, easy to do. Here is Mount Hood from the summit of Powell Butte that I just showed you. A little bit of Photoshop, ta-da, and it becomes the publicity photo for this show. The last photo I have is something a little bit more personal to me. This was taken less than half a mile from here. I want to tell you, you may gather that while most Americans have greater fear of public speaking than death, I am not really among them. I've rarely been accused of being shy. So I was living in Eugene at the time and saw this event online called Adventurous Young Mazamas Winter Weekend. It sounded super fun. I must admit, I was gripped with a little bit of fear when I was walking alone in the dark, in the cold, up this icy path to the Mazama Lodge in government camp, to a place I'd never been, to a room full of strangers. But I broke through the fear. I got in, and I met a room full of people who were awesome and fun and all loved the great outdoors. And within a few hours of being there, I knew these are my people, this is my place, I'm moving here, and I'm becoming a leader in Mazamas. So one of the leaders who was kind of my mentors was explaining to me that Mazamas is more than just adventurous young Mazamas, and this weekend at the lodge, we have all kinds of things, BSEP climbing education program, and of course the Wednesday night travel series. I said, well, I haven't been here 2 whole days. I'm kind of offended that you haven't asked me to come speak at this yet. And she said, isn't that nice? Well, we'd love to have you, but we'll get you on the schedule for next season, because this season is all booked up. And I went back to Eugene with a heavy heart. I could take the fact that the season was all booked up, but it was with a heavy heart that I couldn't just have winter weekend continue on forever. I wake up Monday morning a little bit groggy. I'm not on dawn patrol. I just have to go to do my regular job. But I get an email from my friend that says, remember how I said that speaker series, it's all booked up for this season? We just had someone cancel. What are you doing on Wednesday night? I said, perfect. I thought you'd never ask. I got one condition, though. I need a place to stay. So I stayed in my friend's spare room and took this photo off the back porch of her house, just near Mount Tabor, half a mile from here, just minutes before I did my first Mazamas travel program. And I thought back at that time to what my photography teacher said, that maybe the idea of being in the right place at the right time with the right people doesn't just apply to photography. Thank you. So, for those of you watching on YouTube, if you want to learn more about Mazamas, there's the website up there. If you want to see more of my photography and work, there are many of my social media handles.